Opinionated American writer, commentator and humorist Fran Lebowitz is heading to Australia. She's unleashing her perspective on a plethora of subjects, and I caught up with her from New York a little earlier. Fran Lebowitz, welcome to News Breakfast. It's great to talk to you.
Hello, it's delightful to be here.
How's New York today? I've wondered if the city's changed much over the years.
Yes, of course, New York has changed. You mean probably because of COVID,
yeah.
Which it changed quite a bit very quickly, But, I travel all over the place. Most places have changed. But New York, even without COVID, changes by the day. I mean, that's one of the reasons people who like cities live in cities, because they change. Now, plenty of people don't like change, but luckily they don't live in New York.
How do you find the travel then? Because I look at your schedule and I think, wow, that's pretty intense.
Horrible. It's horrible. And whenever people say, what do you hate about traveling? I always say, traveling. It's the traveling part of traveling that's horrible. Like, I actually do like to be in different places, but getting there is really horrible, as anyone knows who has to go anywhere.
When you lob into a new country, and you're coming to Australia to do some shows, and we'll tell our viewers all about those, but what do you do when you arrive? Do you have a pattern of behaviour?
When I arrive, the second I get out of the airport, I light a cigarette. That's my main goal. And especially, I was in Australia before, maybe about 5.5 years ago. And I do consider the biggest accomplishment of my life is that on that 3,000-hour flight, I didn't kill anyone.
Well, congratulations on that. Let's hope you can achieve that, a goal again on this trip.
Yes, well, yeah, I'm expecting to.
And I think that people would have to agree that I would be an excellent Supreme Court judge, because I am very judgmental.
Your acerbic commentary, your writing, your approach to life just fills the halls, and that's why you are so popular. But I wonder, as time goes on, whether things are as black and white as they always were, or whether your opinions have a touch of grey about them.
The thing I've changed least in my life is my mind. Now, that is, I'm sure there are cases where that isn't true, but I really can't think of any. People make things so complicated. The reasons that are offered for every possible thing, there's a million reasons, and most things just aren't that complicated. I mean, there are very complicated things, nuclear physics, there's all kinds of complicated fields, but that's not whatever people are asking me, or even what I think about, So most things are pretty simple. People make them more complicated. And those complications are really usually excuses. Yes, in the back.
Hey, Fran. I actually never heard of you before.
That's really a good way to break the ice.
At your shows, people can stand up and ask pretty much anything. Is there anything that's off limits?
No. I mean, if someone asks me something I don't want to answer, I just say, I'm not answering that. This is one of the very few upsides of being old. Because when I was young, when I first started being interviewed by people, my first book came out, I was 27. And if a reporter or someone asked me a question, I thought you had to answer it. But it turns out you don't.
Interviewers tend to ask people of a certain age whether they think about death. I'm always curious about that question, but I actually want to ask it of you.
I think about it sometimes. I'm not preoccupied with it. Of course, people ask old people about it because they're closer to it, generally, although, of course, some young people die. I think about it sometimes. I don't think about it. I'm not preoccupied with it. And people more ask me, what do you want your legacy to be? Which is, of course, a way of asking about death, but it's, it's in a little different vein. I don't care what people think about me after I'm dead. I hardly care what people think about me now. And I'm alive somewhat. I just don't care about it. To me, it's like being asked, what would you like to have for dinner the night after you die? Nothing, thanks.
How do you get your news? How do you find out about what's going on in the world?
I rely on the random remarks of others.
You make no apologies for not being online or having a mobile phone or having social media accounts. How do you make your commentary so current all the time? What is it that makes it still very special?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have any of these things, but, first of all, everyone else has them. And second of all, people talk about them all the time. And third of all, there are still, newspapers and magazines and books, which would be good if people would read them. There's still television. So I don't want to have these things, or I don't want to have the phone, so I don't have it. I'm surprised at the number of people that I know who are angry at me about this. I mean, if you have a problem, I can't help you. It's not like I'm the head of emergency brain surgery at New York Hospital.
Do you think that people are generally just a bit more angry these days anyway?
Yes. I mean, other people are. I'm not, because I've always been in a rage. So I find that I have more company in my rage now. People are much angry, especially in this country for sure. People are in a constant rage 24 hours a day. And that is because of the politics. You know, I mean, the politics have gotten so horrible in this country. Not that they're delightful in many other countries, but they're particularly horrible here. Yeah, it's made people very angry. It's also made people take sides on every possible thing, things that have nothing to do with politics. You know, things that you shouldn't take a side about, things that are just preferences. You know, yes, people are definitely more angry.
Australians are very engaged in US politics. I suspect you'll probably get a few questions about that on stage.
I wouldn't say I travel all over the world, but, you know, I travel all over this country, my country. I travel all over Western Europe, Scandinavia, and I think it's very upsetting. In other words, I said to someone recently, it is not a good sign that people in Copenhagen know who the governor of Florida is. And that is because the governor of Florida is so horrible, and he's running for president, and because American politics affect people in a lot of other countries.
Just finally, Fran, is there anything left on your to-do list?
Well, there are things I have to do. You mean, are there things I want to do? I mean, if you mean like traveling or something like that, to tell you the truth, no.
New York's good for you?
I am perfectly happy to be in New York. I'll tell you a question I get that always astonishes me, and I get it all over the world. I get a question which is, if you weren't allowed to live in New York, where would you live? I find this to be an astonishing question, because I live in New York because everyone's allowed to live in New York. That's the great thing about New York. Everyone is allowed to live here. That's not true in a lot of other places, and that's why I live in New York, and it's inconceivable that I wouldn't be allowed to live in New York.
Well, we're very glad that you're going to leave New York and come to Australia, even if it is just for a short trip. We look forward to seeing you when you arrive.
Well, thank you.